Hey everybody, this is Brian from Wasatch Lasercraft. Sometimes when you're cutting through wood or another uneven material with your laser, you get spots that don't quite cut all the way through. Sometimes they're glue spots or knots. Today I'm going to show you how you can recut those spots using the Cut Shapes feature in Lightburn. Okay, so we're in Lightburn now, and first of all, if you're not using start from absolute coordinates here, please use that setting. I use it all the time, and I like it for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that if you want to recut something a second time in the same spot, absolute coordinates is going to be the easiest way to get that done. Second, do not move your material after you cut it. If you need to check and find out if something is cut all the way through, be very careful checking that you're not moving it around. If you do move it, you're likely going to have to realign it one way or another, and that's not going to be very easy. Okay, so I've just made this cut, and I found a small knot that didn't cut. So first I'm going to need to find this position in Lightburn. So there's a couple of ways to do that. One way is to use the jog arrows on my laser machine. Just move the head over to that position. And then right here in Lightburn, in the move panel, I'm just going to click the get position button, and that is going to show me where the laser head is located. And that right now is just about the center of my glue spot. Another way that you can do that is to click this location tool right here in the Lightburn toolbar and click around using it and move your laser head to get in the right position. So I'm going to stick it right there, and I can see that that is over. It's a little hard to see, it looks like on camera, but that's over the position that I need it to be. So now that I've got the camera moved a little closer, so I found the right spot that I want to recut. Next I'm going to draw a cutout shape around it. So a rectangle or a circle works fine, and I'm just going to draw this shape around the area, and then I can frame it to see how big of an area that it covers. That looks pretty good. I can also use this position tool again and just click. This is where my cut would start. This is where it would end. And I'm happy with that size. So next I'm going to cut my design down to just this section inside the rectangle. To do that, I'm going to hit escape to go from the rectangle tool back to the selection tool, or I can also just click up here on the cursor. Then I'm going to select my design shape first. The order matters here. And then I'm going to hold Shift and click on my cutout shape. Once I've selected those in that order, I can come up here to Tools and select Cut Shapes. With Cut Shapes clicked, the rectangle is going to disappear, and you can see now that my circle has been broken into two pieces. Now notice that I've got Cut Selected Graphics selected here. Without that selected, the Frame button is going to frame everything. I don't want to do that. Cut Selected Graphics will cause it to frame just what's about to be cut. And if I hit the preview, I can see it's just going to cut my little piece of the curve right there. Now, side note, if the new cutout shape that you get is bigger than what you had drawn with the rectangle, in other words, if this shape doesn't match to the rectangle that you had drawn before, watch the end of the video. There's currently a Lightburn bug that is about to be fixed shortly, and I'll show you a workaround for it if you run into that bug. But by the next version of Lightburn, the bug's already going to be gone, so I'm just going to leave that for the very end of the video. So now that I've trimmed my design to just the piece that I want cut, I'm ready to cut. I'm going to double check my cut settings, make sure they're what I want to use. For this, because it's so easy to just cut and recut, I can drop the power if I want to and run it multiple times. Also, when my cut starts, it's going to go and ends, it's going to go back to the origin. And so I can actually hit the origin button on my machine and tell it this is where I want it to go back to when the cut is finished. That'll save me some time if I'm cutting the same little segment multiple times. So I've double checked my settings, I've double checked my focus, and I'm gonna fire up the laser and make the cut. Okay, you can see it only took a second. I did see some cutting going on in the middle there. I'm gonna run it one more time. And take a look at it. So when I check this, I still want to be careful not to move it in case it's not cut all the way through just yet. And it feels like it's still not ready yet. Feels like it's still not quite cut through. I'm going to change my settings back to my regular cut settings for this material and run the cut one more time. Check it again. Now sometimes these knots and glue spots can be pretty stubborn. So you can imagine, I've run this multiple times now. Think how much time I'm saving each time I run this. Doesn't hurt anything. And you saw it drop there just now. So now I know that it's really finished cutting. So at this point, I just want to make sure that I've finished cutting through everything. If I had more glue spots, I might take care of those. But since this was only just the one glue spot, I'm just going to check, make sure everything is loose. And now that I see that it is, I'm going to pull my back piece off. Sometimes usually I have the backer held down with magnets. In this case, I just held down the middle piece because that was what was accessible. And there is my glue spot all cut through. If I want that to be pretty, I'll sand it down a little. But there it is, ready for the next step on my sign. So if you're using Lightburn version 1.0.4 or earlier, you might run into a bug with the Cut Shapes tool. Let me show you what that looks like. So I select my design shape and then my cutout shape, run Cut Shapes, and you can see here that the shape that it just cut is much bigger than what it was supposed to be. There's the rectangle, there's what it cut. And this happens in current versions of Lightburn when the shape that you're cutting through has no nodes in it. This is actually a bug that I found and reported to the Lightburn developers, and they just got back to me actually while making this video and said that it's fixed and it'll be in the next version. So you should be able to get around it just by updating to 1.0.5 or later once they're available. If they're not, or for whatever reason you can't upgrade, let me show you how to work around it. Select your shape, click Edit Nodes, and then you can see that this circle doesn't show any nodes to edit. But if you convert it to a path, then it will add nodes. And then you can simply hover over the part of the shape you want to insert the node in and press the I key. And that will insert a node right there. Once you've inserted a node there, if you go back to the normal selection mode, select, shift, select, cut shapes, your shape will be properly cut. So again, if you have 1.0.5 or later, as long as they're able to get the fix in, you should be able to work around this in that way. Otherwise, there's a workaround for you. If this was helpful for you, please give it a like, and I've also got a ton more tutorials just like this on the way, so also consider subscribing if you're interested in those. Thanks for watching.